What's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Josh Jagoda. Today we're going to talk about your shoulder and why it's possibly grinding, clicking, snapping, popping, and whatever may be going on with that. And we're going to talk a little bit about some options and maybe what are some of the causes. So within all our joints, there is pretty much gases that can build up, nitrogen and carbon dioxide. And just like we pop our fingers or something like that, you can have a release of gas that occurs within that shoulder. That's called a cavitation. And that's what we see in chiropractic adjustments when we hear those clicks and stuff like that. And that is okay? So just keep that in mind, that's okay. So also, if it's non-painful or if any of the next things that I'm gonna be talking about are non-painful, they're typically okay for you, okay? So also, what we may have is we may have this bicep tendon that runs up from our bicep and it goes right up into here, and that is the long head. We'll talk more about that, the labrum in there in a second, but this tendon has the ability sometimes to overshoot and kind of grind down onto the actual bone here. So what we can feel is sometimes the tendon sliding back and forth and create some tendon snapping. So that tendon snapping issue is kind of what you may feel on the inside. Sometimes that's okay, sometimes that is not okay? Remember, we have to think about pain versus not painful. Also, after an injury or if you have too tight of muscles, sometimes you can have some tendons that snap over the actual head of the humerus or the ball of the socket joint, and that is what can cause some of that popping and clicking as well. And so another thing we're also going to talk about is what we call ligament laxity. Ligament laxity is saying that you have hypermobility or too much movement. You can see this in autoimmune diseases. You can see this in things such as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, where people are really, really flexible, where they can touch their thumb to their forearm. They have way too much movement in their elbows, and they can kind of like pull their arms all the way under and over. And anything that creates too much ligament laxity, remember, ligaments hold bone to bone so that you don't move too much. But some people, when they have these connective tissue disorders, they have too much movement, and that can create some popping and clicking within the ligaments as well. Another thing that we often see is grinding, and grinding can be in various forms. It can be from this ball and socket kind of pinching up in here. It could have a hooked acromion where things are kind of pinching. It can grind up against tendons, as I mentioned before. But oftentimes you'll see more grinding and wearing and tearing in arthritis. Sometimes also, if you think about the bone right here, what we have on top of the bone is like this covering, and it's called hyaline cartilage. And that cartilage can wear away over time. And if that wears away, you have this nice, silky, smooth surface here that now is like almost like craters on the moon, right? If you think about that, there's going to be a lot of divots, and that can create a lot less good quality movement, which can also cause the grinding, popping, and clicking. Sometimes arthritis is painful, sometimes it is not painful, and so you have to realize that. Also, another thing that can cause this is, as I mentioned before, this bicep tendon comes out and it comes down and it drives into and becomes part of the labrum. Now, labrum is a cartilaginous ring that helps deepen the structure so it creates more stability. But if you can have more tearing in that labrum, and it takes sometimes a lot of time, energy, and effort to tear that labrum, but it's possible. If you tear that labrum, you can have catching, popping, and clicking within that. And you'll feel a little bit of sense of like more instability, and you'll be like, oh, my shoulder's been moving around a little bit more. That's a good indication. And sometimes that can actually be non-painful too. But sometimes in certain movements, you're like over like this and this, they may be a little bit more painful. But if you're having painful popping and clicking anyway, that's like a general rule of thumb, do please get that checked out, take a look at it. And one of the other things is just overuse. You know, sometimes we go to the gym, we push up on our head, we do a lot of things over our head, and that can be a reason for some grinding, popping, and clicking. So guys, at the end of all of this, grinding, popping, and clicking can be okay. Usually grinding isn't as good because that's more indicative of some sort of like degenerative or arthritic type of process. But the popping and the clicking may not be bad for you, but you have to keep in mind, is there more movement than there should be? Does it feel unstable, and is there pain associated with it? If it feels more unstable and you feel like that this is moving too much and it's just not normal anymore, or if there's excessive pain or pain associated when there wasn't, then it's a good idea to get this shoulder checked, especially if you have popping and clicking that is becoming painful, because you don't want it to create another issue. So guys, that is the reason why you may be having popping or clicking or grinding into the shoulder, and those are some reasons for it. But if you do have pain, please make sure you get that checked out. All right, guys? I'm Dr. Josh Jagoda. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll see you guys for the next episode. Bye.